In the real world, we don't always make the most ethical decisions. Take, for instance, Henrietta Lacks. She grew up in a small town in Virginia, and she moved to Baltimore, Maryland to help her family. What she didn't know is that her cells would eventually be taken and misused, and she would have her family remain in poverty after she passed away. Now, here we are decades later. We have gone back and changed her story to make it more ethical and beneficial for the Lacks family. So please sit tight and listen to the story of what would have happened to Henrietta Lacks if all the ethical decisions were made as applied by the business standards. To begin the story, you have to understand that we are not going to change her original background. She was raised in Clover, Virginia, in her relatives' farm. They lived at the home house where she lived with her future husband and cousin. His name is Day, or Dave, but pronounced Day. They lived in a very rural environment in Virginia that used to be owned by masters and have slaves. This eventually became the white and the black Laxes. They are divided, but they are related still. This area included many hard labor tasks during the summers and included a lot of hard work on all the kids. But this also meant that they did not get very educated due to segregation and due to the fact they were in a very rural environment. Eventually, they made their way to Baltimore, where she would eventually raise her kids.
In 1951, Henrietta Lacks noticed something abnormal inside of her. She felt something that could be described as a lump and began bleeding abnormally. She took a trip to Johns Hopkins Genealogy Clinic where she started undergoing treatment. It wasn't long before the doctors diagnosed her with cancer. Doctors from Hopkins asked if they could take samples from her for research. They told her that if all went well, they would be sharing her cells with other doctors for further research. She received legal counsel from lawyers and was advised to take advantage of the situation. They advised her to make a deal which included rights to any future uses of her cells. Hopkins agreed to her request.
Henrietta will have a report with Hopkins that explains what Hopkins is able to do with her cells and also what they cannot do with them. Henrietta's cells would be under asset protection. The numbers will be ran, and Henrietta's family and Hopkins will come to an agreement of how the shares will be split. The Lacks family will be entitled to 50% or more in profits that Hopkins earned from distributing the cells.
The Lacks family ended up making a fortune. They all are college educated and continue to give back to the community. This is one of the communities that the Lacks family has helped build. They have provided homes for all of the families of terminally ill patients and patients with aggressive cancer that are being treated at Johns Hopkins University. Changing the story makes everything better for the majority of people. The HeLa cells have helped and continue to help a large amount of people. Based on the entrepreneurial code of ethics, it is essential for businesses to do what is best for the majority of their customers. Business owners are also responsible for helping as many people as they possibly can, and the HeLa cells do exactly that.
I am basing my code of ethics around the American Bar Association, also known as the ABA. The ABA was created in 1878 and has been changing ever since to keep up to date with the most recent ethical views in the legal society. One thing that we immediately changed was the fact that she got legal counsel on whether or not she should give her cells. After the legal counsel had said, you should take the cells, this is what your information is, and she was able to make informed consent, then she was able to also make a business deal saying that she is in control of where the HeLa cells go in the future or get a percentage of the profit. With that being said, if we hadn't changed the story, I'm a big believer that any attorney, whether they're old or new in the field, should take this on as pro bono because the family is still living in poverty and cannot afford health insurance.
According to the International Federation of Accountants Code of Ethics, Henrietta's report would be invalid because Hopkins violated the fundamental principles of the IFAC in the original story. In order for an account or report to be valid, it has to comply with the fundamental principles. The fundamental principles are integrity, objectivity, professional competence and due care, and professional behavior. Hopkins taking Henrietta's cells without permission, giving them away for personal usage, not telling her anything, or giving her the option to disagree or agree violates each and every one of the fundamental principles. This is why we changed it, so that Henrietta would have all the information that she needed in order to agree or disagree with the distribution of her cells, have rights, and be able to gain something in return for her family.
My major is business management with a concentration in marketing. And the American Marketing Association's Code of Ethics include, but are not limited to, honesty, responsibility, fairness, and respect. The life of Henrietta Lacks and the treatment of her and her cells display a great deal of unethical behavior. In my edit of her story, I chose to change one of the very first moments unethical behavior was displayed, taking Henrietta's cells without her consent. When considering the AMA's Code of Ethics, Hopkins violated even the Marketing Association's rules of behavior. It was only fair that Henrietta was given the option to decline sharing her cells and even them taking them in the first place. That, of course, bleeds into my edit regarding her requesting rights to any further usage of her cells. This part may be a little unrealistic, but hey, it still would have been a better version to have her family taken care of in the long run and have Henrietta's name live forever as a woman who was monumental in medical breakthroughs. The end.